Welcome back. Episode 6. It is Friday, December 15th. Bitcoin's trading at 42,000. And we're just over 3 weeks away from the anticipated ETF approval on January 8th. And I want to show in this episode some of my sources. So people to follow if you're interested in kind of getting a little bit more conviction on this ETF. The best source I would say is James Seyffart from Bloomberg. And let me share with you some of that information. So let's go to James and let's listen.
Obviously, when BlackRock filed, that was a key indication that they're the largest asset manager in the world. They are not going to be doing this if they think there's like I said this last time I was on, right? They would, even if they thought it might not have been quite 50% or something like that, they have to think there's some significant odds of getting this through, right? The other side of this is the Grayscale lawsuit that really tripped things up. And that was one of the reasons why we were more bullish than everyone beforehand, because we were calling for Grayscale to win that lawsuit when most other people were saying they weren't going to win, particularly those outside of the industry. And then those surveillance sharing agreements you were talking about, ironically enough, there were some examples of surveillance sharing agreements in prior applications. The Winklevoss twins actually included one in one of their very first applications because they own Gemini, the exchange, and they were basically saying we're going to use Gemini pricing and we're going to have a surveillance sharing agreement with Gemini's trading platform. But the main crux of that problem is you can't just control the ETF, the custodian, the trading platform, and then say you're being surveilled. So that was a whole different issue on why they that wouldn't get through today, essentially. But Coinbase, obviously things have become just more institutionalized. But when BlackRock filed, one of the big things was they included that surveillance sharing agreement with Coinbase. But honestly, in my view, the Grayscale decision in the DC Circuit Court of Appeals basically vacated the need even for a Coinbase surveillance sharing agreement. It basically said that the surveillance sharing agreement with the CME Bitcoin futures markets, which is regulated by the CFTC and has the surveillance sharing agreement, is enough and should be enough for a spot ETF. Is basically the crux of the issue that came along with the Grayscale decision. So we have all those things that made us more and more confident. And then at the end of September, we saw a lot of delays. Like I talked about all those dates. People were like, oh, that's it. They're going really early. But we were really at the cusp of going into a federal government shutdown, and that people were trying to get things out the door. But after that, shortly after that, in the I think it was October 8th or 9th, we started hearing rumors that there was comments coming back on what's called the S1s, or the prospectuses. So all these dates and things I'm usually talking about are via this 19B4 process, which is the exchanges and these issuers file for a rule change to list something on their exchange. In this case, a spot Bitcoin ETF. And the SEC has to say, okay, we're going to allow this rule change so you can do this. There's two things that need to happen for an ETF to be approved. Anyways,
That's the general gist of it. There's other stuff. I think you should also look at Abacus and a bunch of other feeds, and I'll put some of them in my notes. But the key thing is, we now know that the SEC is engaging very heavily with the ETF applicants. We are putting the final touches on some of these applications. BlackRock is coming back and forth repeatedly, even today. They've had meetings with the SEC. So it's extremely unlikely in my view that the week after Christmas they're basically going to come out and completely torpedo this. Not impossible, but unlikely. So where does that put us? That puts us with an ETF approval that is really kind of pigeonholed between January 8th, which is a Monday, and January 10th, which is sort of the drop-dead date for going completely nuclear. So I think it's happening on Monday, January 8th. I think we are going to get this approval. And now the question is, when does the ETF start trading? And the Bloomberg analyst, has some talk about that. I'm not an expert in this, but He said it could be as short as a week. It could be a couple weeks. It probably won't even be a month. So let's just say it's 1 month. Let's just say it's February 15th. Well, that's 60 days from today. Hard to believe, right? But basically, the smart money is that 30 days from today, we're going to get it approved. Actually, 23 days from today, we'll get it approved. 3 weeks from Monday, we'll get it approved. And then we're going to be actually trading in 2 months. Now, let's stop. We'll stop and just say, what does that mean for the industry? Well, I gave this analysis about the multiplier and all the rest. And, I'll take that with a grain of salt because, some people have said, well, there's only going to be $17 billion coming in the first year. Other people have said there's going to be 30. Who knows? I don't know. And a lot of that depends on the market, right? So this is, to some extent, a reflexive concept. And this is a concept that George Soros in his books talks about a lot, reflexivity. It's that you can't just judge this in the abstract, but price action tends to create more price action. So if the Bitcoin ETF is successful, if the price of Bitcoin goes up, more people are going to want to get into Bitcoin ETF, and that will force more money into Bitcoin. So you can't just sort of sit there, there's 100 billion out here that's coming in here. No, it's as money comes in, other money wants to get in here, a narrative gets formed, and all of a sudden, it's like a snowball, and the snowball gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. So what we do know is there are trillions of dollars in ETFs out there. We know that for sure. We know that this is now a package that's really going to be unique. That's going to be vetted by the top people on Wall Street. And so, without trying to worry about how much it's going to be, and so it's just very, very significant. So this is going to be, I think, a complete change in the way the world thinks about Bitcoin. Now, there still will be people, and a lot of people in the comments have been saying, Fred, you don't understand Bitcoin, not your keys, not your Bitcoin. I get that. But I just don't think for most people, most investors, most, the average American who has a brokerage account, I just don't think they have any other reason than the ETF. It's going to be a really hard sell to get them to custody their own keys and to custody their own Bitcoin. I think that's going to die because I think this is going to be so much more convenient. And furthermore, I think this is going to be the main way that this next class of investors discovers Bitcoin, right? So, I've been to both of the previous Pacific Bitcoin kind of evangelism shows by Swan. I think they're great. I love Swan. I think what they're doing is fantastic. But I just think this is going to do so much more for the adoption of Bitcoin as an asset, because this is really packaging Bitcoin for the average investor. So, I sort of said, kind of jokingly, I think Larry Fink's going to probably do more for Bitcoin than any other person since Satoshi. And I really believe that. I think this could be the breakthrough that we all need. And it's not to say that the keys will not still be valid in many parts of the world. It's not to say there's a parallel market for, on Bitcoin wallets and Lightning and all the rest. There could be. I'm just saying this is the big enchilada. So I'm very bullish. I do think that everybody's sort of in wait and see mode until this ETF. I think that, some people have said, no, Gary's going to go nuclear, and it's possible, right? So I think if you own Bitcoin, you have some risk that, again, we are going to get, very disappointed by Gary Gensler. I don't think that this is going to happen this time, and I think this is going to be just a fantastic moment. And I do think that once we have the announcement, the market will rally on the announcement. That's my my expectation because I don't think it's priced in. So that's a very short episode 6, and I don't think there's going to be much to say before the ETF, but if there is, I will record another short presentation. So thank you.